You're listening to The Money Hour with your host, Tina Mitchell, and co-host Keelan Harvey on Alternative Talk AM 1150. Now, back to the show with local mortgage experts Tina Mitchell and Keelan Harvey.
Welcome back to the Money Hour on 1150 AM KKNW, the Saturday, March 16th show. I am your host, Tina Mitchell.
And co-host Keelan Harvey.
We are here to talk about money, and that's what the show is about, how to make money, how to save money, why, so you can have a better quality of life for you and your family. If you're listening at our show at a different time or day, you are listening to a rebroadcast. If you'd like to connect with the guests that we have on the show, you can call in at 1-855-400-1150. Again, it's 1-855-400-1150 or online at themoneyhour.com. In studio, again, we love having our first guest in studio. She's Deepika Gupta of Dee Coaching, and we're going to be talking about making change easy. Last time we talked about a little bit of fear. Now we're going to roll into change. Dee, thank you so much for joining us back in studio again.
Thank you for having me.
And a little bit about Dee. Dee is... most life coaches help you with performance, all of the metrics of what's successful on a day-to-day basis. What this approach leads to is stress and burnout. There is more to life than constantly meeting key performance indicators. Dee developed a very unique coaching methodology called the Zero Productivity Method, which has a fundamentally opposite aim of the conventional life coach method. If you are the type of person who would love to live a zero productivity lifestyle and at the same time understands that there is no practical get-rich-quick scheme, and that you are prepared to define and go after the zero productivity lifestyle of your dreams and realize ruthless coaching, which will help you through the journey to get there, then you're going to want to stay tuned and listen to our guest, Dee.
Yes, Dee, we're excited to have you back. And this subject of making change, that's really exciting. And your headline here, making change easy, which, you know, it's not easy for anybody to make some changes usually because we're programmed into this thing, and anything outside your comfort zone, sometimes you got to push yourself. So what would you define as a change?
Change is unlearning all the habits that we have that we do subconsciously without even realizing. Doing something new. Well, the first step is unlearning. The second step is deciding to do something new and creating a new habit around it. So it goes to the core of doing things that we're very unaware we're doing, and making something else and becoming unconsciously or subconsciously competent at doing that.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
All life happens at the end of your comfort zone. Anything, if you think about anything that happened in your life that was big, like something that changed your life, it's always somewhere where you're, I don't want to say uncomfortable, but it kind of gives you that little tingle.
Absolutely.
Where you're something's flicking off in your brain like, oh gosh, this isn't normal. But then the rewards are amazing, right?
Yeah. Well, that's why so many people, they know what they need to do. They know the core practices to be successful in life and business, but they don't do it because they've created a habit doing it a different way. So it's retraining. And I always like to say, just brush your teeth with your opposite hand and get that down. Electric toothpaste is going to be a little bit messy, but it's okay. Get used to doing things differently than you normally do so that you can get used to creating different habits for you all the time, because that's what change is and important. So why is change important, Dee?
So I'll explain this with an example.
Okay.
Let's say we are healthy, we eat healthy, we're exercising, and our fitness level is at a 3.
Okay.
We don't do anything for the next 6 months. We eat healthy, we continue to eat healthy, we're doing everything right, but we're not exercising for the next 6 months. Where will we be? Will our fitness level remain at 3, or will we go down?
I think you'd go down.
Yeah.
Will go down.
Yes, of
right?
course.
So that is the reason that change is important, because if we're not growing continuously, we are dying.
Yes.
We are atrophying. So the only way for us to grow, the only way for us to make any kind of progress in our lives is to continuously change.
Yes.
And the moment we stop changing, we go into this phase where, okay, we're dying. So if you want to continue to live and if you don't want to die, then you've got to change.
You've got to embrace change. Love that.
That's crazy. I was listening to Tony Robbins today on the way in, and he was talking about success is progress. And which is change.
It is, yeah,
so,
of course.
It's ironic that I was listening to that this morning, and here we have Dee just reiterating it on her show. That's awesome.
She's a smart girl.
She is. She is.
That's why she's here on the show.
Touche.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Touche. So, Dee, tell us why people struggle with change so much. Why is it so hard for people to change?
Change is means going against something that we're very comfortable doing, that we don't even have to think about, that we're doing as a habit. So when we are forced to face the fact that we've been doing something wrong, maybe our entire lives, or at least most of our lives, or a lot of our lives, then we're forced to accept that we didn't know the right way to do it. So it hits our ego. That's one aspect of it. It affects our... if we're not careful, it can affect our self-confidence that, I thought I was doing this okay. And I've caught myself doing that many times as well. I'm saying a word in a certain way and somebody corrects me and I'm like, oh, really?
Yes.
And that's a very tiny example. But with the bigger change, it's even more difficult. Plus, the amount of effort that we have to put in to do something that we've already been doing so easily is quite often a lot.
Yes.
So we have to take something that we've been doing very, very easily, and we find a way to make a new habit out of it, and it takes effort, and effort is like hard.
Yes. Yeah.
Can be hard.
Well, and that's what I always call change. It is the hard road, but it's the hard road that will lead you to easy street. So once you create that new habit of always changing so that you can test things out to see if it's the right way or not, change to continue to get better. And I always like to say too that you're always stretching yourself to a different level. And it's kind of like learning. When you learn and you get to a certain level, you're not going to go backwards in your learning. And It's the same thing with change and habits. If you continue to change, you're never going to go backwards. It's just stretching yourself as much as you can. So Dee, let's talk about the first step to be accepting change.
The first step to accept change, and the most important, the most crucial step to accept any kind of change, is to make a decision to change.
Yeah.
And this might feel like of course, okay, I make a decision 10,000 times a day and I don't do it.
Yeah.
It is about getting into the right mindset where you say, okay, no matter what, I am going to do this, and that's it. And once that decision has been made, everything else flows through much, much more smoothly. I used to be very overweight. I was 35 pounds overweight
And that's so crazy to think because you're so petite and tiny.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was gaining a pound every month for 2 or 3 years. Every day I used to tell myself, I don't want this. There was one moment of decision when I stood in front of the mirror and I was like, that's it, no more. That was the decision of change. So the most important piece in any kind of change is that decision.
So what was the why behind that decision that actually made that decision connect with your brain to push yourself to go through the difficult thing and actually make a decision to change for real this time? Was there something that was like building up in there? Maybe that was in the subconscious level that hadn't really come forward, right? Maybe?
Right. So it had been building up every month. And I was like, I cannot keep doing this. I cannot keep gaining a pound a month for the rest of my life. How much am I going to end up being? So it was... I think we cannot really we cannot necessarily pinpoint. It is something that comes from within. It's like that's it. When the pain gets harder than what your comfort level, then sometimes pain is a good motivator, and pleasure is a good motivator, but pain is a really strong motivator.
Even stronger, yeah. So if you're listening, a shout out is to really think, how can you put pain in front of you?
Right. Because
that's going to be the pushing point to get you to make that change.
So, Dee, what is what's the next step when you make up your mind? This is kind of what it is, and I always like to say you get what you put up with in life. Like you're rock bottom. Like what are the things that you like literally like your bottom line in life, and you got to lift that bottom line and make that choice in your life. Like, I'm not going to live like this anymore, and it's connected to that why that Tina just said. So when the times are tough, you can go back and say, this is why I'm going to live this way, and I'm going to change my life. So what's the next step in this progress of change?
The next step to building any new habit or creating any kind of change is to do something very, very tiny every day.
Yeah.
So after you've made a decision and you've gone through a little bit of the process of what are the situations I'm going to make this change in, you spend, and I would suggest no more than 5 minutes. You make a commitment to yourself that you're only going to spend 5 minutes every day on that change, whether it's exercising or eating healthy or whatever. 5 minutes.
Yeah.
You'd make a tiny, tiny change. And that is the best way to bring about huge, massive changes, because you'd make a habit of those tiny changes and you build up on it.
Yeah, love it. I would say if you want to make a healthier choice, put your tennis shoes by the front door for a week, walk past them, don't do anything, but walk past them the next week, put your shoes on and take a small walk. The week after that, after your walk, take a drive by the gym. Don't go in it, just drive by it. And then the final week, get into the gym and start working out. So just what you're saying is those small, manageable steps. So the last step, the final step to really bring this to a conclusion and to success when it comes to making change, Dee.
To create any new habit, you've got to do it consistently every day for a certain number of days. Now, the number of days may vary. Some people say 21 days. I wanted to start showering every night, and it took me less than 21 days. I wanted to run, and I ran for 66 days for 30 minutes every day, and I still didn't build a habit. So it depends on how important it is to you, and do it consistently every day until it becomes a habit.
Yes.
That's interesting. So you talk about the fallout of change. How do we deal with the fallout of your changes?
So when you change, you allow yourself the opportunity to have much deeper relationships than you're used to. You have a much higher chance of living a more fulfilled life. You have much higher possibility of living a life that you are happy with. On the flip side, if you grow and change very fast, there is a possibility of losing everything that you know. You may lose your friends, you may decide to quit your job, and it may be very, very scary. I have been off sugar since last year, January, and most friends have been very supportive. I've had one friend who just could not understand that I would not have dessert with them. They spent 1 hour trying to convince me to have dessert, and I lost that friend. So it may happen. You can try to enroll them into your life, and it may happen that you may lose your friends. That is not a reason for you to keep yourself small and keep yourself held back.
Great advice. Thank you so much, Dee. And I think, on the same hand, too, Dee, would you agree that you can actually really embrace this to the fullest, especially in the example that you just gave me? Because what I started thinking about is, what a great thing to be able to position yourself in the way that you react to this change with those friends that are now still overweight when you've lost that weight, of how you can be a real inspiration to them in the process.
Right.
Somebody could walk into the room and go, well, look at me and look at where I'm at now versus where I was, stuck where you guys still are at.
Right.
Or you could come in and go, you know what? This was really, really hard, but I've kind of done all of this hard work up front, and I'd love to kind of be here for you as that support, so you don't have to take this journey on your own like I did.
Right.
And, I just got goosebumps. I mean, it's really, really cool when you make a change and you can really embrace that process, how you can really make a difference in someone else's life.
Right.
Yeah, love that. So Dee, shout out to our listeners that are listening right now that are thinking, my gosh, what the heck? There's no possible way that I can make this change. Because if you're listening, I want you to really think about what is the biggest pain that you have, the thing that you need to change the most, because it's devastating to the results that you're getting in your life, your business, whatever that is, because Dee can help you make that change. And that's what I want you to embrace, is that most difficult. So Dee, what do they need to do?
I would look at your life and identify the one thing that would give you the most bang for buck in terms of change. Go look at that and make a decision. The first thing is to make a decision to do it and decide to just spend, like Tina said, just look at your shoes every day. Very, very tiny decision for every day. That way it's not overwhelming. Don't think of the end result. Just think of that tiny step.
Yeah. I love that. And I think you can look at the ending of how beautiful that last piece is when you have it, but all of the steps in between is what you want to completely stay away from. And just like you said, look at the very first step, but visualize what that end looks like when it's all completed, right?
Yep.
Yeah, beautiful thing. Dee, thank you so much for coming in and joining us in studio. I'm really excited to have you come back very soon.
Thank you.
And coming up next on the mini hour, the Mindset Effect with Susan Palmer Wood. And we're talking about mindset right here at 1150 AM KKNW after this short break.